Well, here we are again. We're about to examine the paper number 159, which is titled Timing of the Crucifixion and the Resurrection. Now, in way of introduction, conventional Christendom takes a Friday crucifixion and a Sunday resurrection of Jesus of the Nazareth. Historical records show this doctrine was not taught by the apostles or the early Testament church. And this paper examines the scriptures, the history, lunar cycle and calendar data, and recent research evidence, and lets them provide the truth of the timing. Evidence is presented that Christ's ministry was for 2.5 years, not the 3.5 years, as has sometimes been inferred by some translations of Daniel 9. Now, a detailed analysis of the events during the 6 days before the Passover is provided, and the paper includes new works which show that the year of the crucifixion was 30 CE rather than 31 CE or 33 CE, as many believe. Right. Now, there's some very interesting information here that I can guarantee that a lot of you people out there that are professing Christianity saying, you know, it is not correct. So, Wade, what would you like to say about this subject? Because it's a huge subject.
Yes, it's a critical factor in the Christian church. What the Church of Christ and the apostles always taught that Christ died on a Wednesday, and that the structure was 3 days, and the sign of Jonah was the critical factor in the death of Christ and the resurrection. And under the sign of Jonah, Christ was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the tomb. Now, the death of the god Attis, which was a pagan system that came into Rome in the 1st century BC and went through into the 2nd century AD and onwards, taught that Attis was killed on a Friday and that he went into hell and he was resurrected by the goddess on the Sunday. Now, that system was to become an insidious error that crept into Christianity through the 2nd century from the worshippers of the god Attis and the mystery and sun cults, and the Mithras system, which was itself a sun worshipping system that came into Rome in 63 BC from Pompey's capture of Cilician pirates. The argument that Christ was crucified on a Friday and resurrected on a Sunday fails on a number of matters. The Friday crucifixion is impossible in terms of the Hebrew calendar that was in effect in the temple system when Christ died. The system was such that the 14th of Abib, which was when the Passover lambs were slaughtered and when Christ was killed, occurred, and we know when they occurred from the new moon data we already have. So we can determine when the new moons were in every year surrounding the likely years that Christ could have died. And from there we can determine the exact days on which the 14th of Abib fell. And at no time in any year that Christ could have been killed did the 14th of Abib fall on a Friday. No. In the years that Christ could have been killed, we went through from, say, the week around, a week of years, in 28 CE. In 28 CE, the 14th of Abib fell on a Sunday, so that there would have been 6 days and 6 nights from the biblical structure, which is impossible and disqualifies Christ.
Right.
Now, the 14th in the year 29 CE, the 14th of Abib fell on the Sabbath. So they were killing the lambs on the Sabbath, which would have taken it from Sabbath to Friday night for the resurrection, which disqualifies Christ from the sign of Jonah anyway. But on the Wednesday, the 14th of, that is in 30 CE, the 14 Abib fell on the Wednesday, and that then fitted with the 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the earth, and Christ was resurrected at dark, or just before dark, on the Sabbath. So that gives you the proper time, and of course that fits in with the New Testament accounts.
Right.
Friday, Sunday doesn't fit the 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the earth, doesn't accord with the structure in the New Testament, where after Christ was killed, the first holy day of unleavened bread was on the next day, and it wasn't the Sabbath. So it couldn't have been a Friday under the New Testament that Christ was killed. So what happens is that these mainstream systems that want a Friday, Sunday crucifixion lie about the circumstances of the crucifixion or the execution. It wasn't a crucifixion. We'll deal with that in the paper on the significance, origin and significance of the cross. So that's paper number 39, and we will deal with that this week. This is being the Passover week, the week of unleavened bread. We're here in a beautiful setting for the feast of the Passover and unleavened bread, and we'll deal with that cross, its origin and significance, in the international service on Wednesday. But what's important to note is that at no time in that week, in 31 CE, the 14th of Abib fell on, again, the Sunday. Now, it's impossible for Christ to have been killed in 31 CE because 14 Abib was on a Sunday. And the people who claim that Christ died in 31 CE do it from a forgery in the book of Daniel in the King James version of the Bible. And their ministers who teach that lie, and they're too indolent to go and do the research and do the looking up of the dates and times and why it's impossible for Christ to have fulfilled the sign of Jonah and died in 31 CE. It can't have happened.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, Wade, there's a few groups out there that like to say it was in 33 CE because Christ had a ministry 33 years long and whatever, or 3.5 years long, and he must have been 33 years old. But what they forget, and as the CCG has done in its diligence and its searching, there's historical facts that show the dates of these new moons and the day that 14th of Abib fell each year. And as you say, the only one it could have done is if 14th of Abib fell on a Wednesday. And all they have to do, the diligent studier or researcher, go and have a look.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we've done all the work for you with the astronomical. Now, I've been to the observatories in Australia here, and we sat down and we worked it out.
Right.
That is, the officers of the observatories helped me, and they did a lot of the work, proof checking everything, and come up with all the dates exactly as it occurred in the times that Christ could have died.
Right, wonderful. Yep.
And a lot of them out there put it off because they say, it can't be observed, it can't be. It's not, it's all calculated, isn't it?
It's calculated,
Yes. Now, and it's all done from the new moon, so you just take it through from there. What happened was that we had the Wednesday was when he died, and that was in 30 CE. 31 CE was on a Sunday, 32 CE was on a Saturday. 33 CE was on a Thursday. Now the reason they take 33 CE is because these paganized pseudo-Christians want a Friday crucifixion. So they then apply a postponement rule to the Thursday to get to Friday. But that's a lie, because there were no postponements in effect in the time of the temple system anyway.
No.
And that the Friday system is impossible to qualify and satisfy the requirements of the sign of Jonah. Wednesday, 5th of April, 30 CE is the only date, the only time that qualifies for the death of Christ under the sign of Jonah and the actual dates and times of the astronomical systems and the temple calendar. So that's why Friday's impossible, 31 CE is impossible, 33 CE is impossible, 29 CE and 28 CE are impossible. Only 30 CE qualifies as the timing of the execution of the Messiah, and his resurrection was on the Saturday evening at dark, just before dark, so that he could then wait overnight become the wave sheaf offering on the Sunday morning.
Yeah, and people, if they instantiate that in their own thinking, and it's a truth, they will then be able to see back from that point as to how long the ministry was, when the birth was, all these things. They can come off this pivotal point. And it is why a lot of these other groups misconstrue it, because they want to hide these truths. So do your diligence. There's a paper there for you. There's historical fact.
Yep. Indeed.
It's a different religious system they are trying to inflict on you, and that's the important structure. They want you to believe that you're going to heaven when you die, and that the being that you take as the Messiah was actually killed on a Friday and resurrected on a Sunday, which is the doctrine of the God Attis, not Christianity. So these people are not Christians, they are fakes. And you had better realise, study, and go and deal with what you believe and rectify any errors you have. Okay.
Well, that's lovely. And there's nothing like being in nature.
They're lovely, isn't it?
It's everywhere.